The 1980s was a golden age for comedies with high concepts, but by far Ghostbusters was one of the earliest, and easily the most active franchise. And with the wake of the new unearthed material in conjunction of the third Ghostbusters movie. As my tribute, let's discuss the lost media dealing with the original flick. Before we begin, if this sounds like your type of cup of tea and you want to see more videos just like this one, then don't forget to subscribe. Be sure to follow me on social media to stay up to date with upcoming projects. And if you want to make a contribution, then you can support me on Patreon, where you can see videos like this nearly 2 weeks in advance. Right, enough of the context. Let's discuss the origins of Ghost Smashers. The inception of the idea began with Dan Aykroyd, growing up in a family fascinated by the supernatural, with himself being a believer with the spirit realm. After leaving Saturday Night Live in 1979, he was reading through the American Society for Psychical Research. Then he harped on the idea on a horror film comedy, but with the comedy harkening back to spooky classics, like the Abbott and Costello horror-themed comedies. He wrote the script to be a launch vehicle for himself and John Belushi, similar to the other film, The Blues Brothers, with a role additionally being written for Eddie Murphy. The storyline was meant to take place far in the future, where the main trio are plumbers known as the Ghost Smashers, using wands to capture the ghosts and travelling through space and time, and other worldly dimensions. On March 5th of 1982, as Dan Aykroyd was writing out one of Belushi's lines, he found out that his pal had passed away. Despite the loss of his business friend, he pushed forward and had at least completed a 40-page treatment. The draft would end up in the hands of the film's eventual director, Ivan Reitman, who felt that the script was biting off more than it could chew, and that it would be insanely costly to make. So he suggested, instead of making it take place far in the future, where the Ghost Smashers job is a well-established industry, to make it instead take place in present-day New York, and have it about 3 chaps trying to launch a niche business. They brought in comedy writer Hamill Ramis to repen the story, as well as the third Ghostbusters member being played by Bill Murray. Well, he didn't necessarily confirm that he'd be in it, and there was further no confirmation that he was committed, not until on the first day of filming, which was really stressful for the whole crew, but hey, he showed up in the end. Bill Murray's role was originally meant for Eddie Murphy, but then they wrote in a new character for Eddie to play. Somebody to act as the straight man against the 3 Ghostbusters, but they were unable to negotiate a reasonable salary for Eddie Murphy. So they instead brought in TV actor Ernie Hudson to fill in that role. Another comedic actor that was nearly in the film was John Candy, and there are even storyboards that reflect that he was meant to be in the film. But as before, the deal didn't work out, so the role of Lewis was instead given to Rick Moranis. In terms of the availability of Ghost Smashers, the material that have been made available is actually from the second incarnation of Ghostbusters, Ghost Smashers, written about 1983. And the first revised version after Belushi's death. A recreated storyboard of the Ghostbusters' first capturing of a ghost was made available on the Ghostbusters DVD, and if you go on the Ghostbusters fan website, Spook Central, you can read some excerpts from this version of the story, but there's currently no way to read up on the whole original script. But Dan Aykroyd, still wanting to honour his late friend, he asked the visual effects team if they could rework the design of Slimer, at the time called the Onion-Headed Ghost, to look just like John Belushi. This would be left in the hands of sculptor Steve Johnson. Well, he was only asked to do so the night before the design had to be approved, and having to resculpt at such short notice, he kind of didn't and just up and lied to them. And it worked! They said it looked just like John Belushi. Alright, so here's something really special I want to share with you lot. Okay, so this was released as part of the Ghostbusters 35th anniversary Blu-ray 4K release. They had unearthed this old film promotional material made exclusively for a film conference promoting for the upcoming release of Ghostbusters. It features Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. I won't play all of it, but I will at least play my favourite little bit. Get a load of this.
And it is PG. I'm fucking telling you, it's PG.
But you know, that's what you gotta love about film companies, that sometimes they can have a little bit of a... Did you see that? That... It kind of looked a bit like... But before things could really start moving, there was only one small problem. The name Ghostbusters was already taken.
We're the Ghostbusters.
I'm Spencer. He's Tracy.
I'm Kong.
A live-action comedy series made back in 1975 already shared the name. The show was created by Filmation and under ownership of Universal. Notoriously, Columbia were unsuccessful in securing the rights of using the name Ghostbusters, but still holding out hope, they did several alternative takes. Whenever the Ghostbusters name was mentioned, they would do variations of the name.
Blasters?
Blasters.
Involving tedious situations, such as removing the Ghostbusters banner for every conceivable name. Even though there may have been a possibility that they couldn't call it Ghostbusters, the film was still shot and locked with that name. There was an infamous moment on set where 300 to 400 extras had to chant the team's name. They first chant Ghostbusters, but proved to be stubborn with the other ghost names. Now indefinitely stuck with the Ghostbusters name for that scene, Columbia pushed forward to get the rights. Thankfully, Frank Price recently acquired the job of head of Universal, where prior to this he was involved with the early development of Ghostbusters, was able to negotiate a deal with Columbia, acquiring the license for $500,000 and 1% of the royalties. In 2014, the raw footage of the Ghostbusters commercial was released on Blu-ray, which featured takes of the alternative names.
Ghostbusters. Ghost Stoppers. Ghost Blasters. And I'm sorry, we'll do it again.
But aside from this, any other alternative takes have never been unveiled. Just 5 more minutes, please, sir. Sorry, folks, that's just, death, waiting for me. Anyway, before I go on to the next slide, let's at least go over the many long-lost Ghostbusters deleted scenes, some of which have been recently rediscovered and made available for the public. The first major deleted scene comes shortly after the Ghostbusters' first encounter of a ghost. On their way to Venkman's office, Ray and Egon discuss as to what this could possibly mean for their career, ignoring Peter's involvement.
Whoa, I introduced you. If it weren't for me, you never would have met. And that's gotta be worth something. Hello, John.
With the janitor trying to clean up the marking on Peter's door, a gag that was seen right after the main title of the film.
You have no place in this department or in this university.
The sequence where the 3 men lose their position at the university was meant to go on a little bit longer. Ray and Egon initially get angry at Venkman, believing that he was able to secure the team's job at the university, only for Venkman to realise that it was placed within a false sense of security.
I guess my faith in the Board of Regents was misplaced.
It could have been worse, Dr. Venkman. They took the astronomer Phileas and staked his head to the town gate.
Both scenes are able to show the Ghostbusters' relationship and ranking with one another, but with prior scenes already demonstrating the same thing, with these short scenes not really revealing anything new and being more filler, it's easy to see why they were cut out. There was originally an alternative take, where Dana asked Peter to leave her house.
I believe something happened here.
Well, what do you want to do?
What I'd like to do is spend the night here.
Get out.
Now, that is the character of Peter Venkman, being a womanizer and playing the field, but being one of the main leads of the film, saying stuff like that for an audience may make him come across as a bit sad and a bit creepy. There was another take where, even though Dana is still rejective to Peter's advancements, Peter comes across as more playful and it's generally an easier scene to watch.
I am madly in love with you.
Don't believe this. Will you please leave?
And then she threw me out of her life. She thought I was a creep.
She thought I was a geek, and she probably wasn't the first.
You are so odd.
At Ghostbusters Fan Fest in 2019, some unused takes of the beginning of the scene were unveiled. Thankfully, for our benefit, fan group Ghostbusters News were sneakily able to do a camera recording of those scenes. So be assured, do not adjust the quality of your set.
They hate this. Torture.
28 Apple 4, 2 cameras, 2 minutes.
That's not all they unveiled, but more on that in a little bit. There was a scene within the Cedric Hotel where a couple wake up of a mysterious presence that seems to be in their room. The mysterious spirit was meant to be a tease for Slimer, the first ghost that the Ghostbusters catch. But when this deleted scene was originally scripted, the couple were meant to be much more occupied by each other, possibly taking place on their honeymoon.
He slimed me.
That's great!
A removed scene after the Ghostbusters had captured Slimer and leaving the Cedric Hotel. They were swarmed by the press, excited to ask as to what exactly went on. One of Peter's lines did get to make it within the montage sequence of the final cut.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No job is too big. No fee is too big. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No job is too big. No fee is too big. We are ready for everything. We have the tools. We have the talent. We are the brave, the best, the only. Ghostbusters!
The deleted footage was rediscovered on a VHS work print of the film, which was accidentally saved by the film's editor, Sheldon Kahn, who had found the content after he was digging through his family home movies. This work print was made available in 2022 on the Ghostbusters Ultimate Collection box set. The work print does feature quite a number of alternative takes and lines. Another Ghostbuster FanFest exclusive is a scene where Ray is fiddling around with a machine. Now, how exactly it was meant to be worked into the final cut?
We had all this crap around and I was always looking for little transitional pieces. And I think it was probably something, I can't remember, it's 35 years ago.
In the Ghostbusters Ultimate Collection box set, this extra footage of Ray was finally made available via that release, along with other dailies that were shown at that event. On the DVD box set, there's this unused shot of Egon and Janine. In the work print, this shot is placed right in the montage scene. Given that this is a similar setup to the shot with Ray, perhaps that was meant to be used for the montage as well. In the work print, there appears to be quite a fair few unused shots in the montage, such as when we see the Ghostbusters get out from bed. There's a random lady that comes on screen, implying that one of the Ghostbusters must be sleeping around. While there were many deleted scenes that were featured on the first Ghostbusters DVD release, there would be more rediscoveries of unseen Ghostbusters material that would call for later re-releases on physical media. This next deleted scene to coincide with the film's 35th anniversary was a short gag showing a copper trying to place a ticket on the Ecto-1, although a device on the rooftop idly watches the copper. Once the bill is placed down, the ticket just incinerates. A little scene with Winston as he's waiting to apply for the job for being a Ghostbuster.
All I can suggest to you is that you just stay out of your house until we can get to you. Ghostbusters, sorry to make you wait.
Listen, I'm usually very psychic, and I have a terrible feeling that something awful's gonna happen to you. I'm afraid you're gonna die.
You have nice clavicles.
Some unused Morana shots, for when he's possessed, fiddling around with the cutlery, were additionally unveiled at Ghostbusters FanFest, and would be later released on the Ultimate Collection in 2022. There was a deleted scene where Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd played two homeless fellas, which were meant to be separate characters from the Ghostbusters. Additionally, many more scenes of Louis Tully bumping into people on the street of New York while he's still possessed.
Are you the gatekeeper?
Sure, baby, I'm the gatekeeper.
Zool!
Zool, what the hell are you doing?
As well as a deleted scene where Louis is confronted by some thugs. He's actually got some otherworldly powers to barge them out of his way. This scene was released for the Ghostbusters 35th anniversary. The special effects are incomplete as to be expected, but it's quite clear from the print that was made available, there's some notable jump cuts.
Come on, man, you want me to stick you? Come on!
So there's still probably a lot more to be unveiled from this sequence. Another scene that hasn't been made fully available is the pulling up scene to Fort Detmering, a night gig between Winston and Ray, where they briefly get a bit of discontentment with a park ranger. The Ghostbusters parking up and entering the building have been made available, but their somewhat confrontation with the park ranger is still locked away in the Sony archive. What was for a long while the most sought-after Ghostbuster deleted scene continues forward with the Fort Detmering scene. Ray's in one of the reconstructed period rooms, where Ray helps himself to an officer's uniform. After laying down, he takes a small kip. But then a short time later, he wakes up to find the ghost that him and Winston have been searching for. The ghost keeps him occupied by undoing his buckle.
Hey, Stan! You alright in there?
Later, man.
The gag of the sequence with Ray's pleasure face was retained for the iconic Ghostbusters song montage, reworked to be a dream sequence. In 2017, some unseen Ghostbuster footage was rediscovered in Aykroyd's personal archive, and sure enough, it was the cheeky ghost scene, made fully available by the film's 35th anniversary. Before the Ghostbusters team face Gozer, Genevieve gives Egon a lucky coin.
It's my lucky coin.
I shouldn't take it. We might not be coming back.
Take it anyway. I got another one at home.
I think this scene is pretty cute, and I kinda wish it was in the final cut. Oh well, it did partially get to make it in the Ghostbusters Afterlife post-credit scene. Just like this one, the rest of the deleted scenes are rather minor. A brief dialogue of Winston having second thoughts. Walter Peck tells a police officer to arrest the Ghostbusters, right at the worst possible time. Stave Pup's hat falling to the ground, right after he's defeated. And right near to the end, when Lewis asks Dana if, well, they did it.
No, Louis. No.
Which, I'm gonna be honest, it was something I always kind of wondered as a wee lad. God, the scene with the honeymoon couple, the blowy and this? The original Ghostbusters was really raunchy. It's extraordinary to think that only by the turn of the mid-2010s, Ghostbusters has only ever been a duet film series. 2 films but then such a faithful following, with the amount of expanded media, 2 cartoon series, an epic video game, and a remake. Only fairly recently we've gotten a 3rd installment of the series. It's always pretty sweet when we've got something new and unearthed from the original 2 flicks. If these scenes would add something more, it's up to the individual. But hey, seeing them reminds us as to why we love them so much.